When we enjoy foods like grilled pork belly or marinated meat, it's not uncommon to notice that some parts of the meat get burned, especially at the edges. It's a natural reaction to want to cut off those charred sections, often because we've heard from various sources that consuming burnt food might be harmful and even lead to serious health issues like cancer. But have you ever wondered whether there's any truth behind this? Why do people often warn against eating the burnt parts of food, and is it really dangerous for our health? Many of us have heard the popular belief that consuming burnt food, particularly the parts that are overcooked or charred, can increase the risk of cancer. But how much of this warning is based on science, and how much is driven by misconceptions or fear? To answer these questions, it's important to first understand what cancer is, how it develops in the body, and whether there's any actual risk associated with eating charred food. Let's take a closer look at these concerns and see whether they hold up under scrutiny. Cancer is a disease that occurs when our genes undergo mutations, leading to the creation of abnormal cells, which we call cancer cells. Gene mutations can happen at any time, and no one is immune to them. Even the healthiest individuals experience gene mutations thousands of times a day. This means that everyone, every day, produces thousands of potential cancer cells. But are these cancer cells really dangerous? The cancer cells themselves are not inherently dangerous, as they are produced daily in our bodies. The real issue arises when these cells accumulate or begin to spread throughout the body. It is the spread or increase in number of these cells that becomes problematic. Our bodies have natural programs in place to prevent these mutations from becoming harmful. Despite the thousands of cancer cells that may form every day, they don't develop into actual cancer because our bodies have systems to suppress gene mutations, repair faulty genes, and actively remove mutated cells. This system can be broadly referred to as our immune system. So, even though cancer cells are created every day, we don't develop cancer because of this robust immune defense system in our bodies. However, if these systems fail to function properly or cannot manage the mutation process, cancer may eventually develop. Another common misconception is that consuming foods containing carcinogens automatically leads to cancer. This, too, is not entirely true. For example, many people enjoy camping, where cooking over an open fire is a common activity. When burning wood, some people feel it helps reduce stress and calm the mind. However, when using fuel like kerosene to start the fire, the flame does not ignite easily. This is because kerosene is not volatile enough to catch fire directly from a match. In contrast, candles burn because the heat from the wick melts the wax, which then travels up the wick and ignites. Similarly, carcinogens do not directly cause cancer. What matters is whether these substances create an environment in the body conducive to cancer development. Simply consuming carcinogens doesn't guarantee that cancer will occur, but if the body is in a state where cancer can develop, the presence of carcinogens increases the risk of cancer forming. The second important factor in cancer prevention is maintaining a healthy immune system. If the immune system and repair mechanisms are well maintained, cancer will not develop. Even if cancer does occur, a well-functioning immune system can prevent the cancer from spreading, reducing its severity. However, it is still important to be mindful of the food we consume in our daily lives. I want to discuss some foods that may increase the risk of cancer. Many people often ask whether these foods should be completely avoided, and the answer is not necessarily. Consuming these foods doesn't directly cause cancer, but it can increase the likelihood of cancer developing. The first and most common type of food associated with an increased risk of cancer is genetically modified foods. Genetically modified organisms, GMOs, are modified to enhance traits such as resistance to pests and environmental conditions. For example, genetically modified corn has been designed to withstand insects and harsh weather, but the modification often impacts its natural reproductive processes. There are concerns that chemicals used in genetically modified foods could cause harm to our bodies. According to a study conducted by researchers from the University of Caen in France, lab rats fed genetically modified corn for about 2 years developed tumors, with the incidence ranging from 50% to as high as 80%. These rats also showed signs of swelling, early death, and various other health issues, including tumors and even autism. This highlights the potential risks posed by genetically modified foods. In South Korea, genetically modified food ingredients are imported in large quantities, and many everyday foods contain such ingredients. While genetically modified foods are labeled, there is often a lack of regulation regarding their safety and long-term effects. Products like soy-based oils, processed foods like instant noodles, and even sweeteners in beverages are commonly derived from genetically modified crops. While it is not possible to completely avoid genetically modified foods, it is essential to choose products labeled as non-GMO when possible. For example, when purchasing plant-based protein products, always check the label to ensure that the soy protein used is not genetically modified. The second food category that can contribute to cancer risk is canned foods. Canned foods often contain a chemical known as bisphenol A, BPA, which can interfere with hormonal balance. This chemical has been shown to disrupt hormones and may have harmful effects on both men and women, potentially leading to various health issues, including cancer. In terms of cancer prevention, it's also important to consider the impact of certain foods on the body. One example is canned foods. The substances used to preserve canned goods, such as bisphenol A, BPA, can disrupt hormonal balance, leading to an increased risk of diseases such as prostate cancer in men and breast cancer in women. Moreover, the heat treatment during the canning process destroys vitamins and nutrients, while preservatives and artificial flavorings can also cause damage and potentially increase cancer risks. Unless absolutely necessary, it's advisable to limit the consumption of canned foods. Another food that can easily contribute to cancer risk is processed meats, such as ham, sausages, and bacon. These foods often contain nitrates and nitrites, which are used as preservatives and to enhance color. When consumed, these substances can be converted into nitrosamines, a known carcinogen that can increase the risk of stomach cancer. Thankfully, advancements in packaging and preservation methods have reduced the use of these harmful additives, but it's still important to choose these products carefully. It's best to avoid processed meats that are red in color, as they tend to contain higher levels of these harmful substances. Sugar-sweetened beverages, such as sodas, fruit juices, and even coffee, are another major contributor to cancer risk. A study conducted by the French National Institute for Health and Medical Research followed over 100,000 adults for 9 years and found a significant link between the consumption of sugary drinks and an increased risk of cancer. These beverages often contain high levels of artificial sweeteners and colorants, such as caramel color, which can cause genetic mutations and contribute to cancer development. Excessive consumption of fructose in these drinks can also lead to fatty liver disease, high triglyceride levels, and a higher likelihood of liver cancer. It's particularly harmful to children, as these sugary drinks increase the likelihood of fatty liver disease in young individuals. Finally, grilled meats are another type of food that can potentially increase the risk of developing cancer. When meat is grilled, especially when it becomes charred, harmful substances such as benzopyrene are produced. Benzopyrene is a well-known carcinogen, and its production is more likely when meat contains fats and proteins that are exposed to high heat. The fat in the meat can drip onto the grill, causing the fat to burn and create smoke, which spreads throughout the meat. This smoke contains the harmful chemical benzopyrene, which can be absorbed by the meat during the cooking process. To reduce exposure to this carcinogen, it is essential to ensure proper ventilation while grilling meat. Grilling in an area with good airflow helps to dissipate the smoke and minimizes the concentration of harmful substances around the food. Even though it is common to cut off the charred parts of the meat, it's important to recognize that the harmful substances like benzopyrene can spread throughout the meat, not just in the burnt portions. Thus, simply removing the charred parts may not eliminate the risk entirely. Despite our best efforts, it's almost impossible to completely avoid certain risks when it comes to cooking. Cutting off the burnt parts of grilled food is certainly a good practice to minimize exposure to harmful chemicals, but it's essential to understand that benzopyrene primarily forms in meats, especially those with a higher fat content. However, it's not just meats that can produce these harmful compounds. Even plant-based foods, like vegetables, can release small amounts of benzopyrene when they are burned. While grilling vegetables may produce fewer carcinogens compared to grilled meats, the risk still exists when food is exposed to high temperatures. It's crucial to remember that the process of grilling, while enjoyable and often delicious, can have unintended consequences when it comes to the production of carcinogenic substances. This is why many people in Korea and other places practice cutting off the charred portions when grilling, as it reduces the amount of benzopyrene that may be consumed. However, it's also important to keep in mind that marinades used to flavor the meat can also burn during grilling, adding to the presence of harmful substances. As such, you don't need to be overly concerned, but it's wise to stay mindful of how you cook your food and the potential risks involved. Today, we discussed cancer and specifically highlighted foods that are more likely to contribute to its development. There are 2 key points to remember about cancer. First, it is not caused by external factors, but rather by the internal environment of the body. And second, eating cancer-causing substances does not directly lead to cancer. However, since we cannot fully understand the state of our bodies or predict exactly how or where cancer might develop, maintaining good health is critical. I hope this discussion was helpful. I will return with more important topics in the future. Thank you for your attention.